Hey my joys, it's Cassandra, the Joyful Artist, and today I'm going to just share with you a few of my strategies for turning negatives into positives and using these in your art. And it's a practice used by many of the artists that I revere, but like I was reading today about Frida Kahlo, and if you think about her life, her struggles, my gosh, she had polio as a child, so she walked with a limp. Then later in the blossoming of her life, she was involved in a terrible accident, a tram accident, and this metal spike went right through her thigh, right through her spine, and she spent most of her life confined to bed or in terrible pain. But she painted anyway, and she used her pain. She talked about her younger sister was born 11 months after her, and she always felt that she never really bonded with her mother, and she suggests that perhaps this was because her mother was was pregnant and then breastfeeding her sibling and unable to breastfeed herself during her later pregnancy. So Frida used her sorrow and frustration, sometimes anger, sometimes all sorts of emotions, but she put them into her art and created a formidable art career. Van Gogh, another one who once said, "The sadness will never end." And despite his profound sadness, he found great joy in painting, and he wanted to put that happiness he found in painting into his art so that others would experience it too. So behind me, sometimes you'll have a painting and it's not really working. So you can take a negative and you can make a positive, like photography. So in this painting, I reworked the painting. I used oils instead of acrylics. I used my love of violets. I was inspired by the things I loved, which was nature. The fact that nature is probably the biggest, most enduring truth teller of all. I doubt if this march of AI will ever be able to replicate the beauty of nature. And Joan Mitchell, who's some of the paintings in the background, was inspired by her gestural action painting. She said, she wasn't trying to replicate nature because nature was always so beautiful. So when you're thinking about putting your emotions into your art, you can use, as Robbie Williams, those of you who are musicians will know, Robbie Williams often talked about his battle with depression. You can look at people like Adele, Amy Winehouse, pouring their emotions into their art. So it's really important that you express what you're feeling in your art, and that will have an energy that resonates and vibrates through all of time. So sometimes what I use to also inspire me, maybe get me out of a funk, along with writing morning pages, which is talked about in this book, The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, a course in discovering and recovering your creative self, which I attribute as instrumental for me getting back to my artistic career. So sometimes you can just turn a page at random. Let's just see. Say, how can I make something beautiful today? So I've opened the page. Could be a quote. Yeah, I love this. Take your life. So it's really saying take responsibility. Take your life in your own hands, and what happens? A terrible thing. No one to blame. So that's that whole energy of putting yourself on the page, not playing into the role of victim, being a peaceful warrior if you need be. The whole growth, I love that. Growth is an erratic forward movement, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Remember that and be very gentle with yourself. A creative recovery is a healing process. You are great, you are capable of great things on Tuesday, but on Wednesday you may slide backwards. This is normal. Growth occurs in spurts. You will lie dormant sometimes. Do not be discouraged. Think of it as resting. Very often a week of insights will be followed by a week of sluggishness. The morning pages will seem pointless. So this is, again, it's another reminder that, not every day is going to be a great day in the studio. Not every day is going to be a great day behind the camera. Not every day is going to be a great day behind the sewing machine, or whatever medium you use to express your joy and creativity. The main thing is sometimes, like the garden, you have to rest. Sometimes you have to leave a work of art for a while, a bit like I'll show you this one I'm working on at the moment. Another oil on canvas. I began painting it. I didn't have the colours that I wanted, they hadn't arrived, so I used some silver. Sometimes accidents can happen, and by using materials that you've already got, you can find yourself, creating something you love. But I do want to have some whites, and my new tube of white. Two new glorious tubes turned up today. A lovely big fat tube of oil, Winsor & Newton oil colour white, and a lovely tube of one of my favourite colours, which is quinacridone magenta. And so I'm going to have a little play date today. This is still wet. Oil paint takes a while to dry, which is quite good. Because it gives you a lot of scope to manipulate and move the paint around. So that's what I'm going to do today. I've given it a rest. I haven't touched this work for since my class ended with my lovely, fun, fearless and fabulous students. So that was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So 5. Coco Chanel, another beautiful woman who would take a negative and make it a positive. She was raised in an orphanage. Her father abandoned her. Her mother died. She used that experience as rich fodder, and with the black and white that was in the nunneries and the habits and everything, it became her signature colour. So she very much was inspired by the pain, escaping the pain of her childhood, and became a very wealthy woman, a very inspiring woman. She's one of my top go-to muses. I've written a book called The Art of Success. It's a holistic look at success for artists. And it's The Art of Success, Coco Chanel. And she loved the number 5. For her, 5 was the number of change. So it's just a short live today, just to say there are many, many ways you can take a negative and make a positive. The yin and the yang, the white and the black, the negative of a photography to the taking the negative and making the positive image. You can channel your pain, sorrow, all sorts of emotions, and you can create something enduring and lasting that inspires other people. You can be a peaceful warrior and stand up for change like I do, creating the happy gallery, being the joyful artist, creating that brand when all the governments and all the health officials wanted us to be in fear and sorrow, didn't want us to sing, didn't want us to hug, didn't want us to show our faces. For various reasons, right or wrong, this isn't really so much a discussion of that. It's a discussion of the huge energy that was prevalent in the last 3 years. My way of showing up as a peaceful warrior was showing up for love, and I'm really proud of that. I'm really happy that what I've been able to do, that people have been able to say, despite profound sorrow that's been happening in my personal life lately, people have said to me, you're a joy to be around. You are joy, and I truly appreciate that feedback. It's really nice to be affirmed, because so often it's how others see us. It's like I've seen people doing paintings and they're really troubled by their paintings, very critical of their paintings, and yet everyone else is saying, wow, I love it, don't touch it, it's fantastic. So sometimes we have to also have our believing mirrors around us energetically to inspire us to keep going. And that's what if you're looking at a purpose and passion in life, that's what I wish to be for people. So I'd be really keen on seeing your comments. I'd love to know what resonated. Talked about a couple of things from, again, just sometimes you have to pause, a bit like compost, leave your work for a while and then come back to it, re-energized. Sometimes you do have to rework a painting that's not working in a completely different medium. Sometimes you have to take your pain and sadness and transform it into something beautiful, again, like compost. Take, as my client says, one of my favourite sayings, make joy from shit. You can do that. We can all do that. And if you need inspiration, look to other artists who've done that successfully, whether they're musicians, artists in the traditional medium of paint, whether they're dancers, whether they're photographers, whether they're writers, whether they're movie makers. So last night I was watching a story about how this woman used her intuition and she found the grave of Richard III. So inspiring, the obstacles she had to overcome, the belittling, the way people claimed her glory. But she persevered and she found the grave of Richard III under a car park in, I think it's Leicestershire, some place like that. Unbelievable story, wonderful story. I read the book and then I saw the movie has come out, so definitely recommend absorbing your heroines. For those of us female artists, I'm really looking more and more to the heroines in our world.